Hello, this is Eagle Wu with Vinci VR, and this is a walkthrough of our offshore wind nacelle training and experience. So this is still a product in development, but hopefully this captures some of the different experiences we are creating, especially as it goes across the training pipeline from recruiting to actual technical training. So the first part of the simulation is more focused on recruiting. This is to get students interested and educated about the industry as a whole. So we have this module here that walks people through different parts of a wind turbine plan. So, for example, this guy right here, we're going to inspect it. We're going to see how big a wind turbine is. Here's our roof. We have a actual turbine farm modeled out and displayed accurately. So we have real-world measurements in here. These turbines are a little over about 1 nautical mile out apart from each other, and stretches down to the rest of the farm. This particular farm is actually only 12 miles from shore, so you can see some of the land over there. So the other aspect of this is that we can take in elements like vertigo. So this is the top of the turbine, but you can actually look all the way down. A lot of our users have experienced an immense amount of vertigo just from looking 500 feet down. You can also fall. So we do have gravity simulated. So I'm gonna walk off, and you hit the water. So more of a fun little experience rather than having training value. But in terms of gathering things like heights or getting people used to working at heights, it's definitely something that can be simulated with proper bodily responses. So now we actually get into our training. So this training module is using a Siemens Gamesa geared 4 turbine. We also have a commissioning checklist in here. This checklist was developed to GWO Basic Technical Training Installation Standards. And a lot of these tasks are actually pulled directly from an installation manual from Siemens Gamesa. So these are real tasks that we're about to do that will take us around the entire turbine. This here is how we actually utilize things like our checklist here. We have a tool belt here where we can access different tools. So a caliper, for example, I can actually joystick to change the width of this caliper, and this will actually allow me to do things like measure certain items, feeler gauge, screwdriver, and so on and so forth. The other aspect of this is that we actually have a commissioning checklist. So as you progress through the different parts of the turbine and as you inspect it, you can delineate or note if it was properly installed, and this will give you your results pretty much immediately. Last thing we have here is in the cell diagram. So this is more to help people navigate and understand where they are in the cell. This is definitely still a beta version of this particular diagram. In the future we'll have things like labels and x-ray vision to see the internals, but that's me over there. And you can see that my head moves with the little guy's head. Alright, let's begin our training. So I can actually pair this to my hand, and it'll turn into like a wristwatch. You can move around by teleporting. So I'm going to teleport over to these brakes. And you're just following the checklist. So I'm going to equip my feeler gauge. I'm going to go and measure. So this allows me to actually simulate measuring things like brake calipers here. Now I'm going to say that I would say based off our checklist this is actually properly installed, and I'll mark it as so. Next we're going to the gear housing to pull our calipers here. So measuring our calipers. Now we can also tell what you're looking at and where your gaze is. So this eyeball, for example, means that I need to go and visually inspect that the spacer is lined up and not jagged. So once I've looked at it long enough, you'll actually continue. And the rest of the checklist will take you through measuring the rest of the gear house, to checking the grease pot, to actually getting down into the yaw section and grabbing things like these bolts here. So that's BTT installation in a nutshell. There is another version of that training that's actually a test. So in this version of the training, there will be defects. So what we just played was called our demonstration mode. That's assuming that the turbine is properly installed. In this one, random parts of the turbine will not be installed correctly. This brake pad, for example, on the first step, I can visually see that these little calipers, or these kind of brake discs here, the one on the left has a lot more space compared to the one on the right. So I can already tell that this is not installed properly, but we're just going to be sure and actually measure it. That's 1, and that's 5, right? So we're going to go ahead, mark this as incorrectly installed, and continue along our checklist here. So a lot of these defects can be visually seen. Some of them you will actually have to perform measurements of. This grease pot, for example, we can tell that this is definitely not installed correctly. There's grease everywhere. It's missing some springs on the left side. We can go to the bolter, see some of the bolts are loose. However, you actually cannot select these things until you've actually performed a proper inspection. So we are checking to make sure that they've actually inspected each element before they go in and make an assessment of the installation. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to reach out with our contact info, which is in our video description. Thanks, and hope you enjoyed this tour.